It is a Gemini new moon. It is approaching here this weekend, and I'm going to talk about it in this video. What can this Gemini new moon moment bring? What is the symbolic embedding in this new moon moment? Stay tuned. We're going to break down the Gemini new moon. All right. Glad to be here. Glad to see you. My name's S.J. Anderson. This is my channel where I talk about the ongoing astrology, the unfoldment of the transiting astrology, trying to interpret those transit to transit symbols because they generally apply. I know this is a question that comes up a lot, which is why does this video apply to you or to me? Because we have a specific nativity. And while it's true that this general delineation model does not offer the most custom-tailored applicability to an individual nativity, it does offer these general energies that then get overlaid to certain sectors of our charts and lives. And I find that the general delineation can sometimes be quite potent, independent of where your chart is at, one, and then two, a lot of you know your chart out there. And so you know when I say Gemini new moon, we've got a robust Gemini moment here. You know what whole sign house that's in your chart, and you can begin bringing your mind to the house topics that you know for your nativity are activated. An interesting moment of astrology, especially with mutable signs now braving Saturn for the next 2.5 years. Every time these mutable syzygies hit, we have a Saturn and Pisces moment, and Saturn and Pisces become centered because the story of Saturn and Pisces is triggered by the transiting syzygy in that axis, in the modality, the axis where Saturn is, namely the mutable axis. And let's just jump right into the chart. We've got the new moon in Gemini, 18 June, Sunday at 4:37 a.m. UTC. So we're looking at the evening on Saturday, Sunday in Asia and down under, and real early Sunday morning here in Europe. And it's this new moon in Gemini. It refreshes things. It kicks off a new lunation, that is to say a lunar month. Always with new moons, there's this idea of the sun seeding the moon. The spirit, which is the sun, the consciousness, the moon is the body, and the consciousness and the body align in the moment of a new moon. And the moon gets seeded and then sent out for this lunation cycle, or a lunation, a lunar month. So it's always, I think, good to be keen on the symbols of a new moon, maybe even more than a full moon sometimes, because there's this seeding of a full cycle that will come around, and everything has a life cycle. The life, we're born, we mature, we have our 3 Saturn returns, and then we pass on in a 90-year life, if we take that as the average lifespan. And so we're all thinking about the birth, the expansion, the fullness, then the decay, and then back into the rubble. That is the cycle. And maybe we get reborn and then we have another life. And this is the idea that this moon is being reborn and seeded by the sun here. So, again, it's the attitude of some newness, some refreshment here that you can get at a new moon. And Mercury is powerful in this chart, extremely powerful. It's still barely visible as a morning star. You might sneak out in the morning in the right part of the earth and see that little twinkling Mercury. If you have a nice view on the eastern horizon. And you still have this very powerful Gemini Mercury in its own domicile, ruling Gemini, the earth sign, the active earth sign. So this is a major theme right out of the gate. We have power Mercury ruling the syzygy, ruling the sun and the moon, and very powerful in the chart. It's also the second consecutive syzygy in the mutable axis with Saturn and Pisces. And again, we're all still feeling into our Saturn and Pisces story. Saturn entered Pisces 7 March. We're here 18 June. That's just over 3 months, April, May, June, and some days of figuring out what is Saturn and Pisces. What is it for you? What is it for me? What is it in our story? And these snapshot syzygies highlight that transit. And so are an opportune time to check in. How is your Saturn story going? What sector of the chart is it in for you? What are the new foundations, the issues that may have emerged, the problems, the challenges, the difficulties, the obstacles? That's all Saturn. And then the invitation into the problems that Saturn provides. It says, come here, come look at this stuff. I need you to attend to this. And we slowly then build new foundations in our lives through the problems that emerge. Problems are solutions in a different form, right? Because a problem begs a solution. And so we're being called in that Pisces sector with Saturn there to find new solutions in our lives. And this is a syzygy that highlights it, because you can see here in the chart, Saturn's at 7 degrees Pisces stationary retrograde, so that first retrograde station of Saturn in Pisces, which punctuates and intensifies that story even more. This might be the syzygy to do the Saturn and Pisces check-in, the initial check-in. I know I talked about that in a recent video, but you can see it's darn close by orb. It's a 4 degrees away from Mercury and Gemini, the ruling planet by domicile of the syzygy. Now, and if you're experiencing this at nighttime, so when the sun is under the ascendant axis, which would be the case in North America, a lot of North America, I believe, Saturn is the ruler also of this syzygy. Saturn rules Gemini by triplicity. I have it here. And so you're dealing with a Mercury-Saturn square in the chart, the two rulers of the syzygy, really highlighting the mutable axis. What do I have here? Yeah, Mercury had entered Gemini on 11 June, and Mercury will leave Gemini on 27 June, a mere 15 days. What is that, 15, 16 days? A very fast Mercury right now blowing through Gemini. This syzygy gives us that highlight of Mercury there. Let's saturate into symbols a little bit more. Let's bring ourselves into what is Gemini. A lot of astrologers out there are interested in trying to color a moment with, that's a bad version of a planet. Like, that's a bad Mercury because it's being overcome by Saturn and Pisces. I like to take another approach, which is just to saturate in the symbol. Let the universe, let our lives show us where on the symbolic continuum the meaning is to be found in our lives. And squares can often be productive. I mean, Saturn and Mercury work together often. They are the trigon lords of air signs. They're kind of teammates. And in this chart, Saturn rules Mercury by night triplicity. So there might be something where there's a conspiring of planets for your benefit. I don't think it's worth here saying it's only bad, which is, I think, the tendency of a lot of astrologers, even in the ancient texts. They're often, well, Saturn gets involved, it's horrific. I don't find that to be the case. It's worth considering the trouble, though, because yes, these are troubled symbols, a square from Saturn. So we have to give some voice and some consciousness to that side of the symbolic continuum, but we can't leave out the other stuff. So let's just saturate in Gemini here a little bit. They're the twins, right? The Gemini is the double-bodied sign, the air sign. So what I have here is the twins in each of us, the multiplicity inside. All of us have different parts of ourselves, different identities, maybe even different voices in your head. And I mean that in the non-pathologized form. Just the ongoing stories we tell ourselves, the narratives that we've inherited or that we've embodied or played with or practiced with. All of us have this multiplicity inside of us. And I think whenever Gemini emerges, it's the thought forms that are running around in our heads at all times. If you've done any meditation practice, you try to sit on your pillow and not move, and it just goes nuts and mad. That's the Gemini. That's the thought forms that run rampant inside of our minds. And I have here, it's like a diamond, all the various sides of the shining diamond. We all have that diamond within with our mental states. And it's beautiful. I mean, Gemini is one of the, I think, most beautiful and elegant signs in a certain way, because there's beauty in thought. Just think about your thought generator, how powerful it is to rearrange language in fresh and new ways. I mean, the fact that you can articulate or speak sentences. I could say, tell me about your day yesterday, and you can just run through sentences for 5 or 10 minutes, noting and identifying the order of things by which you went through that moment or that day. This is all Gemini. And there's never one truth. This is kind of a truism, you might say, of reality. There's never just one. There's not a single reality. There's rather a multiplicity of realities. I mean, 6 billion, 7 billion realities. Everybody's got a different version of events, a different story, a different narrative, and a different reality frame. And I say here, except maybe for the great reality, which would be this kind of cosmic oneness that everything's held in. But other than that, you have this wild multiplicity and variety of thought form and of, even speech pattern. Everybody's got different phrases, different ways they articulate, different accents even. So it's a wildly multiplicitous universe, and we can go out and experience it. That's the nature of the air sign part of Gemini. It's calling us to get out and engage our thoughts in the outer world. I know I've just been delineating the twins as an internal state, but this is also the outer world. You can go and find your twins, find your brothers and sisters and siblings out there in the outer world every day, wherever you are. And maybe some of you are in very isolated rural places, and it's not as easy. But I mean, if you're in any kind of city or town, I mean, just go out into the town square, go meet people. Hey, what's up? How are you? Start verbalizing and connecting with people. This is all the Gemini. Strong Mercury in Gemini now with the syzygy seeding a new cycle, highly supportive of active engagement verbally with other individuals in this reality. And you might can view it, hey, there's another reality frame. Let me kind of explore their reality frame. Curiosity is one keyword you'll often hear with Gemini, and I think it's wonderful being curious about other people. If any of you have ever struggled with like social anxiety or kind of nervousness around people, I found the best antidote is curiosity. Genuine curiosity. Hey, how are you? What are you up to? Where are you from? What's going on with your day today? Oh, you're doing this or that. You just ask questions. That's all. One thing I learned in speech was you can ask a question, wait for a response, make a comment, and then see if they respond to the comment, and then ask another question. It's just you just repeat ad infinitum. So, hey, how are you doing? How's your day? Someone says, oh, it's good. I've just been going to work. You might make a statement, oh, yeah, me too. I'm working a lot today. It's good to be working, And they might say, oh, yeah, work is part of life, whatever. And then, oh, well, where do you go to work? So it's just this statement, listening, questions. And you can repeat this formula to learn about the people around you, to engage the twins that are always around us everywhere we go. Heart of the archetype is splitting, distinction, discrimination, rounds of questioning, considering the other, then the next other, then the next other, because there's an infinite others that are always propagating reality. Think about your life, the history of your friends, your friend groups and friend circles. I remember high school, I had certain friend groups, went to college, different friend group, then went out of high school, different friend groups, into a job, new city. There's always these emergent groups of connections that arise, that are important, and then fall away. And it's constantly being reborn, the individuals and people that we engage with. That's Gemini. When you meet someone, it's new discernment, new distinction, new connection, new verbalization. And it's this arising and falling of these kind of infinite forms of connection that we have in this beautiful, wondrous reality. So this is what I think about when I think about Gemini. These symbols are in focus. Sun and Moon in Gemini, powerful Mercury in Gemini. So Mercury is many, many, many things. This is Vedius Valens, the Riley translation of the planets, the 7 traditional that Valens delineates right in the first chapter. Mercury has the biggest paragraph. It's the most things. And you'll see this in these ancient texts. They say Mercury can be like the other planets. It's the one planet that takes on the energies of other planets. It's a chameleon. And versatility, you can see here, Valens gives that keyword to Mercury. So you might find you're able to maneuver right now into various things you're being called into. But I wanted to highlight here youth games. This is, I think, a dose of something we all really need right now, is a little bit more fun and a little bit more playfulness. Mercury separating from that square, overcoming square to Saturn now. It might be a little easier to have some fun here. This lunation, before Venus stations retrograde on 23 July, there's this moment with Venus and Mars together in Leo, and then Mars will come into Virgo, being ruled by Mercury. On 10 July that happens, but there's a kind of playful energy right now. And you might think about, where's your fun? Where's your playfulness? Where's children is another delineation. It should be right in here somewhere. It is. But it's children and kids and playful youth. Yeah, youth and games. Be like a child. Be curious and have fun. I want to add that here because so often when we delineate the astrology, it's good to say, well, what are the opportunities? Where's the kind of good vibe in this moment? And I think fun and youth and games is a big part of it. And just to come back to the versatility idea, with Venus and Mars currently in Leo together, that's a real hot co-presence. That could be really destabilizing relationally. I don't know what's going on in any of your lives, but I know the people I've talked to in my life, there's unexpected kind of relational challenges and dynamics that have emerged. And you might be navigating that. And I'm not just talking about romance. I'm talking about friendship or any kind of relationships you're obligated to or committed to. With Mars and Venus, these are drama energies where things get kicked up in a fiery way. And it might be that you're riding out some situations right now that are impassioned and challenged and have their unique obstacles. Mercury in Gemini is sextiling. So I'm just going to come to this next slide as I talk about this because I want to show you here. Mercury is making that sextile exact to Venus in this syzygy chart. It's just separating now. It's very supportive because Mars and Venus ruled by the Sun, because they're in Leo, the Sun ruled by Mercury. And so this idea of youth and playfulness and having fun, especially now that Mercury's separating from Saturn, you might add a dose of fun. Let's say you've got some situation that's been dramatic relationally. You might just want to laugh or do a puzzle or send someone a joke. Mercury is humor. Bring a dose of playfulness. Where's the playfulness? Where's the fun? You know, you might tell someone, hey, let's have a little fun. You know, I know this situation's hard, but try to bring a smile to people around you. Try to bring a smile to their face. That sextile, Mercury-Venus, is very productive of artistic playfulness, fun, and connection and unity around things like humor and even games out in the community. Let's come back. Deep structures are built through using the power of the mind to make distinctions and draw contrast. This is something I want to describe as we talk about the productive side of Saturn square Mercury here, right? This is the deep structure. This is the challenge and obstacle and difficulty, Saturn and Pisces, even emotional spaces of confusion, right? And Mercury is the mind, the distinctions that can be drawn, but they can work together, you know. Mercury and Saturn, they're a very powerful combination. There's attention to detail that Mercury provides, but it allows the slower change, the more glacial change of Saturn to be mapped, noted, and processed. It's like those measurements that they measure every year. Like when you're a kid, you measure every year on the door frame. You can draw 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. I did this, I think I did this, or I've seen other people doing it. And you can note over time the growth of a human being, of a human body, whereas the day-to-day, you have no idea. Or like growing a beard out, you know, you look every day, it's not that much longer, but it's after 2 weeks, 3 weeks? It's really about 2 months or 3 months you really start getting a beard, a nice full beard, but it takes time. And unless you're documenting it with some systematic measurement and systematic processes, it can sometimes be tough to see that change and note that change. And so that might be some of the opportunity here. Let's say you're confused right now and it's just this mess of what the hell is going on. It's this mutable energy. Saturn and Pisces, it's intangible. There's no way to grasp through it. It's dreamlike. It's emotionally confusing in whatever sector that is with Saturn there in Pisces. Now Mercury comes to have this productive and dynamic square. Saturn's overcoming Mercury. Let's say you've been trying to get your mind straight and it just won't go. It won't quite kick up the mercurial analytical side. It might be that, you know, somehow this is productive of finding a new form of measurement, a new strategy for notation, new words. And now Mercury here in Gemini being pushed by that Saturn propels to new vocabularies, new rubrics, new methods of understanding that only could be born out of the confusion of Saturn and Pisces. That's the productive benefit of the square. I just want to know, that's the major feature in this chart. You know, use the productive confusion to birth new methods of delineation and distinction in your reality. Sometimes it's only through the pain and the challenge and the confusion that new way of seeing can be born. It's only through that square that the changes can be birthed. Okay, let's come out of the tarot. The tarot, I know some of you have different pronunciations. I like tarot, but tarot, I use them both. Here's the card that represents Gemini, the Lovers. And this is the French, La Mauve. I'm not sure exactly what that even means in the French. Someone in the comments knows. Is love in French, is it mauve, some form of mauve? Anyhow, this is the card. You see the card, there's 3 people. There's a guy in the middle or a gal, and there's people fighting, pulling over this guy. I think it's 2 women and then a man in the middle, if we're going to use traditional gender, you know, stereotypes. But you can see Cupid's striking them, and there's some kind of fight here or tension over relationship. This is the card for the Lovers in the Tarot of Marseille, which is what this deck is. And it fits so potently right now because you have Mars and Venus together, co-present in Leo, not perfecting an aspect because of Venus's impending retrograde. So whatever dramas you've got relationally, this is bringing in that duality, the dual nature of reality. Saturn and Pisces, Mercury, Sun, Moon, and Gemini, all of that mutable activation, where it could be confusing. Who loves who, who's actually attached to who's playing who wants to be whose lover or something like this. All of that mixed signals or uncertainty is embedded here in these symbols. So I have problem is quarreling as folks bring details and counter details. And then with that square from Saturn, it's like those arguments have no end, no benefit, just one big rabbit hole of nothingness. And I think what I mean by that is just if people are arguing, it might be there's no productivity. It's being lost in a fog, which is water and air. That's Pisces and Gemini squaring. It's some kind of Saturn Mercury fog around relationship right now. This could be speaking to how you're feeling or the situation you're in, just symbolically. What's the other side of the Lovers? Well, you talk and tell someone you love them. I mean, there's no better way. I guess this is a love language, verbal. I haven't read that book, but I think that's probably one of them, the verbal expressions of love. But what better way? You know, when you think about dating and people talk about love and dating or even friendship, one of the first things they'll tell you is the best way. If you like want to date, you just tell someone, I like you, you're cute, I'm attracted to you. You can even say that exactly. And I want to see you, can we get together? And that does something very powerful, and you articulate your desire and share it way more than like being in a mixed signal state of like, hey, how are you? You know, and never coming forward with that active force of language. Air signs are active signs. They're linguistic signs, particularly Gemini. So you might, you know, be someone in this dance of the Lovers where you might be being called here to just say, listen, you're cute. I like you. I'm attracted to you. I have a crush on you. I want to see you. What's your number? You know, I know that sounds a little weird, but in a form of that, it's just this directness of speech that I think can somehow cut through the fog and confusion. And that might be the outcome of these kind of Lovers quarrels. And then if there's still quarreling, at least someone's done that clear articulation. And that might be what's happening in this moment for you. The final thing I want to say about the chart is look how it's dominated by these squares. So you have a fixed square, Mars, Venus, and Leo squaring Jupiter and Taurus, and then Uranus, if you want to bring in that outer planet. There it is. There's all these, so there's a hard aspect via square in the fixed axis, and then there's a hard aspect via square in the mutable axis for traditional planets. Throw Neptune in if you want. And so it's really about this tension here built into this syzygy, being pushed by tension, being brought into something fresh, and something being born newly here because there's tension. All of these aspects could be broken down very much in depth. I'm not going to do that in this video because I've talked about a lot of this. Just know that the nature of the square aspects are tension. Now you do have a sextile with Leo and Gemini, so I've talked about that already. Articulating self and desire as a way through maybe relational confusion and quarreling. But then you also have the Jupiter-Saturn sextile, Pisces to Taurus, which I've talked about at length in video after video. Very creative, productive, of deep creativity, deep surrealistic breakthroughs of creativity. All that energy is still embedded here. And look at this is as close to applying as you may get between Saturn and Jupiter, the only perfected sextile they'll make this cycle. So this syzygy brings in that beauty of the creative force of power. You may want to just say, you know, all this tension, all this relationship drama, bail on that and just go into your creative spaces. Embrace your creativity, your inner world. I can see this being a period where you might deliberately choose more internalized, not so-called nocturnal models to really feed that Jupiter-Saturn sextile in a moment if there's other dramas that you just want to tap out of. I don't think it's ever a bad thing, you know, to just say, I need to take a break from some relational drama. No, thank you. Telling people, no, I can't, I'm out, that's your problem. And I don't mean that literally, but no, thank you. I can't participate in this right now. And people that love you will just say, cool, that's fine. We'll check in 2 weeks. Wait till everything comes into Cancer, because that might be more productive of familial emotional expression and starting new emotional processes with people. You might want to just tap out into that Cancer until that Cancer new moon. And nothing's in the cardinal axis. That's the other unique feature of this new moon. No planets in cardinal signs until the sun ingresses into Cancer, 21 June, 6 days, 5 days from when I'm recording this video, save for the moon's peregrination. So this moon will just go to Cancer. It'll be there for 2.5 days. But then the sun will ingress into Cancer. But we haven't had cardinal energy other than the moon for a while since Venus entered Leo back on 5 June. So it's a lot of time without the initiatory power of the cardinal axis being a major player. And I say have here cardinal signs are those of initiation. And so there may be more dealing with already ongoing dramas or unresolved situations rather than a sense of this is like newly what I want to do. And I think it fits with the Lovers card. The quarreling and the uncertainty, two people pulling one person. Cancer season, when it comes on 21 June, may provide for clarity and newness around whatever those situations are. Without cardinal energy, it may be more a challenge of ongoing situations rather than newness. So keep that in mind. It fits the symbolism of squares and the relational focus and this new moon that we've already described. All right, a few news stories. Venus and Mars, planets of war, they're in Leo, they're co-present. 5 June, things very much ramped up when those two planets became co-present in Leo in the Ukraine situation. And both are ruled by that sun in Gemini. And then now Mercury's joined. So there's this kind of war through the air that's embedded in the symbols of the moment. Here's a story from The Insider. Iran's attack drones have become a key weapon in Russia's war arsenal. Now Tehran is helping Putin to build his own factory to produce them. So there's this idea of the drone warfare. I've seen it all over Twitter. There's the cameras on these drones. They're flying right into the Leopard and Bradleys, just blowing them up. And the nature of war being so drone-oriented right now very much fits with this current symbolism. And the way that the images that are all over the internet match with this current transiting symbolism. That's one of the powers of astrology. It really does speak symbolically to things that emerge. Even in these shorter term transits, it's very, very powerful. And then the next news story, this is the Guardian robot takeover. Not quite. Here's the AI doomsday, what that scenario would look like. This was from a few days ago, earlier in June. Carl Paul. And the first paragraph, alarm over artificial intelligence has reached a fever pitch in recent months. And there was 300 industry leaders that published a warning AI could lead to human extinction, worse than pandemics or nuclear war. This to me is the Saturn square from Pisces to Gemini with the sun and then now Mercury there. Because it's all the tension around this confusion, Saturn and Pisces. What the hell is AI? How is it changing us? Who are we? What's the nature of being? What's the collective oneness? And how does the Saturnine Aquarian innervations of AI and Mercurial, how are those going to be processed? Squaring the sun and Mercury, fear, right? The squares can be fear. Mercury is a planet of anxiety when it can be harmed like this. So there's just anxiety and fear around tech, and worth noting that. I think we'll be sifting through these stories all through Saturn and Pisces. It may take Saturn and Aries meeting Neptune in the first degree of Aries in February 2026 to get clarity about this real transitional moment with the new technologies as they're coming online here mid-decade, mid-2020s. All right, let's jam here with one election for this next half of the lunation, the waxing half. Moon young in Cancer. I really like this moon out of everything that is available to us during this waxing cycle. The one thing I don't like about it, the moon is still dark. All right, but it's strong in Cancer, so it's in its chariot. I think that does mitigate the fact that the moon has not yet been reborn. It's not yet visible, even though it will be visible, I think, by this next morning. So this is 19 June. So by like the 20th in the morning, the next day, you will have a visible moon in Cancer. But the thing about this Cancer moon is it's applying to Jupiter. And that's what I love about it. It makes an application, an applying sextile to Jupiter in Taurus, and there's this mutual reception by exaltation that is lovely here. And then it triggers the Jupiter-Saturn sextile, because the moon also is applying to trine Saturn, and it will trine Saturn perfectly after it perfects the sextile with Jupiter. And so this is maybe, we talk about the creativity of Cancer, the deep contemplations of the matrix of being, the matrix we are installed in. Those contemplations can be very generative of the creative process. And I think this moment here, as the moon is young and applying to Jupiter, while Jupiter and Saturn are perfecting that aspect, you might have breakthroughs here. I said very creative core reality, a creative thrust of initiation, the Cancerian initiation into some kind of core reality. So anyhow, I'm offering that as the election that I like. Look at the moon, safe from Mars, trining Saturn, and then safe from the nodes. So it's one of the best moons that we're going to get in this young phase, because the rulers, and particularly the domicile ruler, is itself. And that's always nice to have. You don't need the moon to rely on anything else. It relies on itself here. All right, that's it for this video. I'll be doing more breakdowns very, very soon, trying to do more videos. Have a wonderful new moon and have a wonderful, half of the lunation. Enjoy Venus and Mars co-present while they're still here in Leo, the heat, the fire. Even if there's relational drama, you can enjoy that sometimes. Sometimes the drama is the best thing to happen to a relationship because it means people care. People are passionate. When someone's impassioned in a relationship, it means that there's actually action happening between two people. That can be preferable sometimes to just a cold, dispassionate posture. So just enjoy that here. The moon will come into Leo. It will join Venus and Mars in Leo during this lunation, half of the lunation. So enjoy that. And we'll talk very soon. You can go to my website, sjanderson144.com. Schedule a reading with me if you'd like. We can talk about all this stuff as it relates to your particular nativity. And take care out there. Talk really soon. Bye.